Greetings and welcome to another bonus episode of High Point, Turning Point, and End Point. In this video, I will take a second look at the Distortus Rex from Jurassic World Rebirth. Warning though, this video will be heavy on spoilers from that film and have theories about the D-Rex. So if you have yet to see that film, Rebirth, I would suggest that you discontinue watching this as of now and check it out at a later time. Just to begin, although my view of Jurassic World Rebirth is mostly positive, there's probably one major source of disappointment, the backstory of the Distortus Rex, or more accurately, the complete lack thereof. While the film does start with an origin scene for the D-Rex, really little to no information is given about this horrid creation. The real disappointment sets in at the end of the film, because although the Distortus Rex looks horrifying and probably terrorizes the characters, we only learn two things about it. The D-Rex hunts at night and is attracted to light, specifically that of the lab complex. Beyond that, there really is no explanation as to why it looks the way it is, how it acts, and how it became to be. In fact, the light from the flares is how Duncan Kincaid manages to lure the creature away from the group. However, earlier before the D-Rex even shows up, Duncan and Dr. Loomis, they have a moment to briefly explore the lab in which the D-Rex and the other hybrid experiments were created. But other than seeing a two-headed velociraptor in a vat, there's little to no explanation as to what was conducted in this lab. Nothing's really conveyed to the audience about how the D-Rex was created. It was created around 2010. 2008 is when the Scorpius Rex is created, and in 2013 would be when the Indominus Rex was born for Jurassic World. And these dinosaurs are similar in that they're all hybrids, and they had inherently multiple dinosaurs in their genome. But all three of them very clearly have the base genome as a T-Rex. After all, the name for the D-Rex is Distortus Rex, which means deformed king. Beyond that name, though, in an interview with Entertainment Weekly, David Koepp, the screenwriter for Jurassic Park, The Lost World, and Jurassic World Rebirth, stated that his thought process for conceptualizing the D-Rex was there's a cross between, of course, a T-Rex and a sauropod. That revelation reveals, or at least explains, the size of the D-Rex, which is easily the largest land-based carnivore we've seen in the series, larger than the T-Rex, the Spinosaurus, or even the Indominus. The Jurassic World Park franchise features plenty of sauropods, such as the Brachiosaurus, the Apatosaurus, Camarasaurus, and the Dreadnoughtus, and, from Rebirth, the Titanosaurus. Seen as this Titanosaurus was depicted and featured in Jurassic World Rebirth on the same island as the D-Rex, it seems that it could be, or would be, the most likely candidate for a mutant hybrid. I would say even the skull of the Titanosaurus has a rounded beluga whale kind of style look, much like the D-Rex has. And while the Titanosaurus DNA would explain the size of the D-Rex, it doesn't do much to account for its overall shape and how it moves. In that same Entertainment Weekly article, the director, Gareth Edwards, cites that the Rancor from Return of the Jedi and the Xenomorph from the Alien franchise were two of the inspirations for this creature. But another one I would say is the Muto from 2014's Godzilla, which was also directed by Gareth Edwards, bears a resemblance as well, whereas the Muto's limb structure and how it walks has two front forearms that are much longer than its hind legs, very similar to the D-Rex. But that doesn't really provide a in Jurassic Park world answer. Curiously, the Muto from Godzilla and the D-Rex's mechanics, the way they walk, are very similar to a great ape, and many different people have kind of made that connection. It looks kind of like it's walking on its knuckles, like a gorilla might perhaps, and they use those front limbs either as support, much like the D-Rex, but it can also use those forelimbs to grab and grip things. However, that movement of the D-Rex reminds me of another animal, bats. Because when bats are walking around, when they're not flying, they use their wings as like a foreleg, and those because of course they're the wings, are much bigger, more developed than the hind legs, so it kind of has an awkward walk to it. Very characteristic of the D-Rex, where it has the larger front arms and smaller but strong hind legs that can support its weight. And of course, the D-Rex has, in addition to those limbs, the tinier T-Rex-like limbs in the front of its chest. So it has 6 limbs total. But again, the longer front limbs gives it an ungainly, dilapidated appearance. It kind of moves awkwardly, but still pretty fast for its size and strength. But of course, bats are never really discussed in any Jurassic Park world or movie, so I don't think that would be an obvious answer for them to be spliced into dinosaur DNA per se. But there is one group, of course, of animals in the Jurassic Park World franchise that would fit that slot, and that, of course, is the group of pterosaurs. And there are plenty of pterosaurs or winged dinosaurs featured in the movies. Jurassic Park 3, we see the pterodons walk around like on their wings. The pterosaurs, a whole bunch of them from Jurassic World. The Quetzalcoatlus from Rebirth, of course, also walks very similarly when it's not flying. But there's one pterosaur that comes to mind. In that sequence when Zora and Dr. Loomis are attempting to get the DNA from the Quetzalcoatlus' egg, at the top of that cliff is where Duncan Kincaid is stationed to monitor the team's slack lines and make sure nothing happens. And while he's doing that, he sees a green pterosaur flying, relatively small, but it catches his attention. And even though he's usually on task throughout the film, he kind of gets distracted and follows it, notices that it flies into the bushes and down like a secret staircase. That dinosaur in question is called Anurognathus, which translates without tail, frog jaw. The body structure, if you look at this image, is very frog-like, but it also mirrors that of the D-Rex. You have the short, powerful hind legs, the long forearm limbs, and on top of that, a bulbous head which seems very disproportionate with the rest of its body, which also should sound familiar. Additionally, the tailless component of its name explains possibly why the D-Rex has such a shorter tail when compared to the Titanosaurus and the T-Rex. Because not to say that the D-Rex doesn't have a tail, it does. It's not quite as long when compared to the rest of its body. Furthermore, all 3 of these pieces of the genome, potential pieces, can all be found on that same island. Some sort of mutagen was introduced by InGen in the creation of the Mutagen and the D-Rex. I would say this is further evidenced by the beginning, the prologue, when the scientists are wearing the hazmat suits, because we really haven't seen that in any other movie, any other lab. The scientists wearing those outfits in particular. I think that really kind of gives a clue that there is some sort of mutagen or something dangerous to those scientists. They have to wear that. And there's 3 types of mutagens that exist that would require hazmats. The physical mutagens, chemical mutagens, and biological mutagens. Physical mutagens include radiation and high temperature, and this seems very likely because of the red glow of the lab, and anytime we see the D-Rex, those colors are always associated with it in almost every scene. And it's very similar, the prologue for Rebirth 2, 2014 Godzilla, when they have the core reactor and the radiation death. Of course, both of those films, same director, so it's very interesting how there's a parallel between radiation, which could have served as a mutagen for the D-Rex. Another mutagen would be chemical mutagens, but those I don't really feel are featured at all in the Jurassic Park World franchise. But the third, biological mutagens, which would include viruses and bacteria, that sounds right up Dr. Wu's alley, something that would fit within the overall franchise. I suggest that you check out my previous video I made on the D-Rex's origins that may have to do with a DX virus and possibly a mutagen that explains its creation. So I do hope that you found this video somewhat thought-provoking. At least consider some of my theory as plausible. And also be sure to check out my other videos concerning the Jurassic Park World franchise, how the overall story structure works. And as always, thanks for listening.